Prigozhin's coup failed. Explanation and aftermath. Putin's Russia is a failed state. This is what we're gonna talk about today. Putin, I need a ride, not ammunition. I can't find a better explanation than this picture of tank in the gates of the circus in Rostov. Russians call it the circus with tanks. Can't describe it any better. Hi, I'm Elena, welcome to my political channel Enough of Propaganda. And today we're gonna talk about the failed coup organized by Putin's chef and the chief of the Wagner PMC, Yevgeny Prigozhin. What happened, how it happened, and what is the results of it, and what is the most important stuff to know about this. The largest city captured during the Russian special military operation turns out to be Rostov, Russia. So basically, Prigozhin and his bandits troops spent almost a year trying to capture Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, which is like 70,000 people used to live before the war and destruction of the city. And yet, in Russian bloody war in Ukraine, they hardly could capture 70,000 people city. And yet, in a day, Prigozhin captured Rostov-on-Don, which is over 1 million people city, and Voronezh, which is also over 1 million people city. And he came almost to outskirts to Volgograd, which is where I'm from, and again over 1 million people city, and get halfway to Moscow. Good special military operation, bravo. Before we're gonna talk about coup in Russia, I want to say that while we were watching the coup and wondering will Prigozhin get to Moscow or not, while Prigozhin was going to Moscow, Russia was bombing Kiev. And this is what was happening. 3 people dead, 9 wounded. Russia keep bombing civilians, keep fighting that bloody war in Ukraine, keep murdering Ukrainians. And by the time we were distracted with what's happening in Russia, people in Kiev were dying. Again. I want to say right away that I'm not supporting Putin, I'm fighting Putin, in fact, for my country, Russia, and for Ukraine. Putin's regime must fall. But I'm not supported Prigozhin either, because Prigozhin is a criminal, he's a bandit who killing people by sledgehammer, and his Wagner group still now his number two guy is Dmitry Utkin, a neo-Nazi psychopath with neo-Nazis, everything. Like the Wagner itself, they named the group after the favorite composer of Hitler. So there is no question about it. Putin regime will fall eventually, and the coup of Prigozhin is a big blow to Putin regime, but nobody should be supporting either one. They are equally bad. Prigozhin may be slightly better than Putin, but I'm not so sure about that. So I did not support either one, and not support it, and never will. I want to underline that from both sides were murderers and bandits. Either Putin's regime, which is killing people in Russia, killing people in Ukraine for years, and especially after, not just even started, when the war started in 2014, but it's kind of like a whole full-scale invasion started in February 2022, and even on a mass scale, Putin started to kill people. But as I told you before on my videos, that Putin put Russia in danger by starting this war in the first place in 2014, and by making Russia so weak that anybody, right now it's a bunch of bandits, some sort of a mercenaries, with, if to believe Prigozhin, was 25,000 troops, within a day, captured 2 million people cities in Russia, and almost get to Moscow. They didn't make it about 200 kilometers or so, without any resistance, without any problem. It means that the way to Moscow and into Russia is wide open. People have a huge border with Russia, has a huge border with Ukraine and other countries. Anybody, Kazakhstan, China, whoever else has borders with Russia could just walk in and get to Moscow. And the president will be run away. A Russian president chickened out. All the Prigozhin coup started from this video. I won't turn the sound because they're swearing all the time. He was saying that Ministry of Defense of Russia attacked the camps of PMC Wagner and shelled them with whatever. I don't see any holes in the ground from the shelling of any kind. I don't see any evidence. Like, that's why many people think this video was staged, fabricated, just to have an casus belli or excuse for Prigozhin to go and march towards Moscow. And that's what he decided to do. He decided that he will, just because Ministry of Defense, in his opinion, shelled his camps, he decided he will go to Russia and talk to them. He went to Rostov and decided he gonna talk to the Minister of Defense of Shoigu and Chief of General Staff Gerasimov and so on. And that's eventually was trying to talk to Putin, President of Russia, but this didn't happen by the looks of it. Russian Ministry of Defense denied that they were striking the camps of PMC Wagner. This is in Russian. I can't confirm that the translation is correct. It would have been funny if it wouldn't be so disgusting and scary when the ex-criminal who was from Russian jail became some sort of a legitimate businessman that Putin made. Talking about justice, he called his march to Moscow as a march of justice, a march of fairness, trying to say to Russian people that he's going to punish the oligarchs and punish the military chiefs of Russian army who don't feel sorry for the soldiers, they wasting them. Prigozhin himself came to jail, several Russian jails, took people, prisoners, sometimes forced them to become his PMC Wagner and used them as the meat for the meat grinder. His troops succeed in Bakhmut in Ukraine only because they didn't even stop to pick up wounded soldiers. And now he's talking about a bloodshed and about how not delicate Russian military commanders to the soldiers. He didn't give absolutely second thought about his soldiers. He used them as a meat for the meat grinder. They were torturing people. He killing his own soldiers by sledgehammer. He chopping the fingers of the people just for the minor offenses, something like using a cell phone or something like that, which sometimes could be not a minor offenses, but even smaller than that, and showing the jar full of fingers to the newcomers to scare them. That's how he ruling his soldiers. And he was gonna talk about fairness. He called his march to Moscow march of fairness or march of justice. What justice we're talking about? I just saw the other day that Russian economists, they don't even know how much money Prigozhin has. He has fingers in so many pies. He diversifies so much in Africa, in Syria, in everywhere. Nobody even know how much money he has. His children, his daughter, there are videos, and they live in the same life of oligarch children who his Prigozhin so despised and saying, while you children are having fun and making videos, publishing in social media, my soldiers are dying here in Bakhmut. He's the one who killing them. He's the one who's sending them to death and don't even bothering to pick them up and shooting the severely wounded people instead of helping them. So it is so disgusting to hear that he is pro-justice. How come people could possibly believe that the oligarch gonna go against them and he gonna think about regular people? This is just a lie, disgusting lie. Half an hour later, after that attack, so-called attack on his camps, Prigozhin made a statement.
Совет командиров ЧВК «Вагнер» принял решение. Зло, которое несет военное руководство страны, должно быть остановлено.
He is saying that the group of commanders of PMC Wagner made a decision to stop the evil, which is bringing the commanders of the Russian army. And that's why they're gonna march, create a march of justice, or march of fairness, and stop that evil who's killing Russian people and Russian soldiers. And he deliberately using the word Russian, not in a way Russian citizens, which is could be Russia is a multinational country, but in an ethnic Russian. He's talking about only ethnic Russians. So who isn't ethnic Russians could just die, who cares? And even like ethnic Russians. He doesn't care about them and at all. After that statement, at first, Prigozhin was trying to say something every 15 minutes or half an hour or something like that. And people at first didn't understand what is happening. Will he come to Russia or will happen anything? Eventually turned out to be Prigozhin took Rostov. Prigozhin crossed the border without any problems. He wasn't stopped until he get to Rostov-on-Don, the big over 1 million people city. And then he started to threatening Minister of Defense Shoigu.
Шойгу только что трусливо бежал из Ростова.
Shoigu just now cowardly ran from Rostov. At 9 p.m. he cowardly ran away like a woman.
В 21:00 он бежал трусливо, как баба.
So he won't have to explain why he ordered the helicopters to liquidate our guys, why he hit us with the missiles. That's what Prigozhin is saying. And this scam will be stopped. He called the Russian Ministry of Defense a scam, which is, he's right about that. George Alburov, it's a journalist from the Navalny group, wrote in his tweet at the time, "Where is the Russian police? Where is the Russian army? What is Russian police who can only beat up with batons the students on the streets? Where were they when Prigozhin took Rostov?" I also would like to know that. Russian police and Russian National Guards only can beat up with these batons scrawny students on the streets and grandmas who standing with signs against war. They couldn't stop Prigozhin and his tanks, could they? Prigozhin claimed that he has 25,000 people with him, and he was saying that other PMC Wagner troops who is now came back from the war to home and because they finished their 6 months contract and stuff like that, which he claimed would be another 25,000 or maybe 32,000 people gonna join him, and offer everybody to join him. He was expecting Russian army or Russian people gonna join him for some reason. But first of all, many Wagner group troops were killed just because Prigozhin used them as a meat for the meat grinder. So there couldn't be that many left. Even there are maybe 20,000, who knows. They didn't join him. Neither did Russian army, neither did Russian people. The fact that Prigozhin could cross the border so easily and went that far means that nobody wants to defend Putin. FSB started a criminal case against Prigozhin because he incited a military coup, military rebellion. This is from Popular Politics channel. This is how in Rostov they were preparing to meet Prigozhin and even involved the conscripts and stuff like that. And this is Moscow, Kutuzovsky Prospect, and this is Prichistinskaya embankment. This is downtown Moscow. Military vehicles. This is Moscow. Military vehicles, whole columns of military vehicles in Moscow, near Parliament. Meanwhile, on 23rd of June, the same time when all this started to happen, Putin just making a speech and congratulating everybody with a day of young people. I am happy to see you and congratulations. At the same time, when Putin making his happy speech, this is what's happening on Rostov streets. Only at 1:30 at night, Russian official TV said something about that something happening, but mostly saying the same thing that Minister of Defense didn't attack PMC Wagner or whatever. And then they woke up General Surovikin or General Armageddon, this man, and he tried to talk to the PMC Wagner troops and ask them to stop advancing and obey people elected President Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is a usurper who is took power in my country, Russia, one of my two countries, and I would like to see how he was elected by people. But nevertheless, that's what General Armageddon said. And you know why he called General Armageddon? It's because he was so hard on his subordinates that some of them killed themselves after talking to him, after he basically invited to the scolding on the carpet, like Russians call it, his subordinates. Some of them just killed themselves after that. General Surovikin, General Armageddon, also famous for, during the coup in Russia in 1991, the columns of the tanks, which was, he was a commander of this column of the tanks, they ran over and killed 3 people, 3 civilians. And nothing happened to him. Civilians was proclaimed the heroes, but Surovikin, nothing happened to him. He didn't serve jail time or anything. It's okay, he get away with killing civilians. Another general is a general of GRU, Alexeyev, also asked Wagner troops to not to support Prigozhin, and he called it a stabbing in the back of the country and the president, and he asked them not to do that. PMC Wagner took Rostov, and there were lots of footage of people in Rostov. PMC Wagner took the Russian southern military districts, where they're coordinating all the decisions made about the war in Ukraine. And Shoigu ran away before that, right from there. This is footage of Prigozhin as taking main military headquarters in Rostov, and
По нам стрелять, а мы их сбивать.
put close attention. These 2 generals. This is General Yevkurov, deputy of Shoigu, deputy of Minister of Defense of Russia. This is General Alexeyev, which you just saw. And he is a deputy of chief of GRU. And basically sitting with the bandit Prigozhin, discussing how they're gonna give up their bosses, Shoigu, Minister of Defense, and Gerasimov, chief of staff, and so on, to the bandit Prigozhin. And Prigozhin said, I knock down your helicopters who try to shoot at us, and I'm gonna knock down another helicopters or whoever you will send to kill us. And they peacefully talking to him. Prigozhin appeared on TV and said that the whole city of Rostov is taken and all the military parts of it and even airport. But every time he underlining that he's not gonna interfere with the war with Ukraine, he gonna support it and so on. So in the end of this video, I'll tell most important stuff about it, but for now, this is what he was talking about, that he took Rostov, basically, and he's proud of it. So, nobody wanted to defend Putin. It took over 224 days for Prigozhin to take Bakhmut, 70,000 people city, and it took a few hours to take Rostov, 1 million people city in Russia. But the point I want to make here, look at that person. The Russian people, and even opposition or anything, they did nothing. There was a practically brilliant thing for them to do is just to do marches of protests or something like that, while Russian army is too busy with Prigozhin and his coup. Nobody done anything. This person pretend nothing happening at all. Apathy of Russian people and Russian opposition or anybody who is in Russia. Russian opposition probably in jail most likely, but I mean the Russian people, they didn't do nothing at all. This person pretending nothing is happening, tanks on the streets. I'm just doing my job. I'm not interested in politics. I'm just astonished and disgusted. If you saw the movie Don't Look Up, this is the ultimate Don't Look Up kind of moment. Here are the people who trying to leave Rostov by train. No, Putin didn't beat Stalin's record. He didn't hide under the table for 3 days. He eventually appeared on TV almost like over 10 hours later, about like 15 hours later. after everything was already happening, Rostov fell. Putin showed up.
Кто готовил вооруженный мятеж, встал на путь шантажа и террористических методов, понесут неминуемое наказание.
He is saying that people who started the coup and they're traitors and they will be punished, and it wouldn't be unavoidable. They will be punished. We'll see how that played out. Prigozhin responded to Putin's speech, and he said that nobody will stop and said and give ourselves up, not because of president say so or FSB or anything. We don't want the country live in corruption and lies and bureaucracy. We are patriots, and people who is against us now, this is people who standing around the scam and supporting the bad guys. So a liar, thief, and corruptioner right now is saying that basically everybody else is corruptioner, and he is gonna fight it. Yeah, right. After Rostov, Prigozhin and his troops continued their march towards Moscow, towards Voronezh at the time. In his speech, Putin said that all the main places in Rostov were taken by Wagner PMC. Meanwhile, while he was talking, Wagner PMC haven't sit without doing anything, and they took Voronezh, another 1 million people city, and took all the military places in Voronezh. One of the Wagner troops soldiers saying that they already knocked down 3 helicopters and 1 transport plane, and they are moving towards Moscow. He's calling Shoigu degenerate from Tuva. 180 soldiers of border guards, they just give up to Prigozhin. Look at that whip dogs. I'm not saying they should have joined Prigozhin, but they should have fight against Putin. Look at that. Men who had arms in their hands, that they allow Putin or Prigozhin, 2 bandits, running their country. This is map, I think made by Verstka, about how far Wagner troops came. This is Rostov-on-Don, and this is Lightsets, where the cities where there were blow-ups and stuff like that, like Russia bombed their own fuel depot and stuff like that. And this was the places where there were military action, and about 20 people died as a result of it. And partly that was pilots in the helicopters and in the plane Prigozhin knocked down, which is good luck getting new pilots. It's take a long time to train pilots and so on. Now it sounds like Prigozhin offered them to 50 million rubles. I'm not sure each or to all of them, which is about 582,000 American dollars. So, I killed your relatives, no big deal. It was a mistake, as he said. I'm gonna pay for it. Get the money. Who need your relatives anyways? This highway, M4 Don, was it's a main highway. It was blocked for a while during the Prigozhin coup and stuff like that, a mutiny or rebellion. And it sounded like he didn't make about 200 kilometers to Moscow. That's how far wide open people could get into Russia and so on. While Prigozhin is going towards Moscow, Russia digging holes on the highway and people can't get home. But who cares about people? They're trying to stop Prigozhin.
Перед мостом АК со стороны Липецы, вот Липецы остаются. Закрываем со стороны Москвы, грузовиками блокируем всю трассу, сзади пиздец, там флот. Забираем ключи.
So they're trying to block the roads, taking away keys from the drivers and block the roads from Prigozhin advancing to Moscow to stop him. The plot thickened until about 8 o'clock in the evening. There started to be information appear that Putin and Prigozhin made an agreement through Belarusian dictator Lukashenko. Putin didn't talk to Prigozhin directly, but Lukashenko, the dictator from Belarus, kind of talked to Prigozhin, and basically Prigozhin gave up and stopped. This is what Prigozhin is saying about.
ЧВК «Вагнер» хотели расформировать. Мы вышли 23 июня на...
He is saying that PMC Wagner went to that march of justice and so on, but in anyways, he's saying that they didn't spill the blood, which they did, like Wagner blood even. He was saying we didn't lose a drop of blood of Wagner troops. No, they did. Wagner troops, there is even videos about blowing up the Wagner truck and stuff like that, so basically he gave up, caved in, and even if he knows he's not gonna live long after that, but he's hoped to live somewhat. So the situation was going up and up and up and escalating, and then all of a sudden, poof, it all was gone. And the best thing to illustrate it would be that tank which stuck at the circus, which was leaving later Rostov, and the people were cheering and filming it on the smartphones and so on. Wagner troops are leaving Rostov. This is what was promised, basically, it sounded like, to Prigozhin. Number 1, Shoigu's resignation. Number 2, amnesty for the Wagner mercenaries. And number 3, the possibility to return to Africa. But Prigozhin knows he can't trust Putin, and Putin knows he can't trust Prigozhin, so they both lie to each other and pretend that they believe in it. Basically, Prigozhin's days are numbered. And so is Putin's days as a president, as he proved himself to be incapable of controlling the country. This says that criminal case against Prigozhin will be dropped. The fighters of the Wagner PMC as members of the special military operation will receive legal immunity. The State Duma will take appropriate decisions in the coming days. Good one. What about people who dead? How about them? The criminal case against Prigozhin will be closed, and Putin looked like an idiot who said that, oh, we're gonna punish everybody and so on. And this is a regular criminal case which was opened. Another proof that Russia doesn't have any laws, doesn't have a constitution, doesn't have anything. And Peskov said that Prigozhin will go to Belarus, and he didn't say what Prigozhin gonna do there. There are some speculations now that he might go to Ukraine from Belarus, attack Ukraine, who knows. Even war criminal Girkin Strelkov is blaming Prigozhin for getting away scot-free. And he's thinking this is not over yet, and so am I thinking. 6 downed combat helicopters, and 1 RER aircraft with a crew. And this amnesty now. And so this is for creator of March of Justice, and so on. There is no law in Russia, as I told you so, and here it is. Proofs. There is a lot of information that Putin and some oligarchs like Rotenberg and Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov and so on, and even Putin himself left Moscow. So Putin ran away, his oligarchs ran away. Putin does not control the country. And he failed to control the country, he failed as a president completely. So to summarize everything, this is on the border. This is those pathetic guards standing and letting Prigozhin and his troops in. Basically, what it proved, we don't know for sure. Was it organized by Putin? I don't think so, because it's damaged Putin's reputation severely. But there are different opinions about that. Nobody knows for sure. Let's look at the facts. So basically, Prigozhin, with a few troops, went right in through the border, right up to about 200 kilometers before the Moscow, and he could have gone further. It means anybody can walk right in and get to Moscow, basically. Nobody's stopping them. So Russian border doesn't defend anything. Putin cannot control the country. Putin was hiding over 10 hours, roughly 15 hours, without even talking to people. He's out of touch with the reality, and anybody basically can just walk in. He failed. Russia is a failed state. Putin cannot control Russia. Nobody wants to defend Putin. But the apathy of Russian people is also obvious. Not even opposition use the chance to take power or anything, or protests, or have a mass amount of people come on the streets. Nobody would have taken them because they would be too busy dealing with Prigozhin and his coup. Coup failed. Prigozhin lied to people as much as Putin does, basically. He dumped his people, and right now I have information that they raiding basically the houses where the Prigozhin troops living, the people who served there 6 months and came back from the war. And most likely Putin will get rid of all of them, one way or another. Either send them again in the meat grinder, or kill them, or somehow they accidentally will fall from the windows or whatever. Putin will not forgive that, period. But the days of Putin as a president are going to be very limited, because he showed to everyone in the country that he is weak. He cannot stand up against even small group of armed men. It's just such an embarrassment for Putin, so I highly doubt Putin organized it. But everything is possible. Another important moment which Prigozhin's coup showed everyone: NATO never attacked Russia. NATO does not want to attack Russia. Ukraine didn't attack Russia. If Prigozhin with a little group of soldiers could made it up to Moscow, it means anybody could just walk in. Kazakhstan, China, any NATO country could have just walked in and they will be in Moscow within hours. Prigozhin with a little group made it to Moscow. Nobody stopped him. Nobody would stop anyone who will attack Russia now. Putin put Russia in danger. He attacked independent country for no reason. It was aggressive move, an aggressive war. And now he put Russia in danger. So Russian people died because of a fight between Putin's chef Prigozhin, who Putin made into little czar with his little private army, so-called private because they getting support and supplies from Russian military, paid by Russian taxpayers. Meanwhile, Prigozhin made a fight with a Russian regular army, so Russians fighting Russians inside Russia. And in the end, at least 20 people died, and nobody gonna get punished for that. There is an amnesty. People get away with it. Prigozhin get away with it, his army get away with it. Putin's fault. Putin failed as a president, Russia is a failed state. Another important thing Prigozhin said, I'll maybe make special video about this. Prigozhin admitted that nobody attacked Russia. NATO wasn't a threat. Ukraine wasn't a threat. They didn't have Nazis or anything, so war was completely in vain. And yet, he's saying he's gonna keep fighting. He's gonna go back and his soldiers gonna go back fighting. Why? He just admitted that the war was wrong. There was no reason for that whatsoever, period. And I'm glad to hear that, because maybe some Russian idiots, useful idiots, or trolls, or some foreign useful idiots will finally recognize that's what all I've been telling you over a year now, since full-scale invasion, and even before in my book. There was no reason for this war. Putin started it for no reason whatsoever. There is no ground for Russia to stand on about this. None. And Prigozhin admitted it. Let's see what is happening in Russia meanwhile. In Russian St. Petersburg, there is a festival of red sails. Beautiful celebration. It doesn't matter that coup in Russia, the people died, and almost Putin lost his power, and who knows, they're celebrating. Sorry for such a long video. But this is the end of it. And thank you for watching. Hopefully now you understand more about the coup of Prigozhin in Russia and what happened. I don't believe this is the end of it. We still will see what happens, because Putin not gonna leave Prigozhin alone, or Wagner group, period. That's not gonna happen. So I don't think this is the end. We will see what's gonna happen. And thank you for watching and have a great day. To Putin and Prigozhin from me.